Yo, what is good? We are back with another one, and this is a deep one, so buckle up. This quote is by Malcolm X, and it reads, I have it right here. Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race you belong to so much that you don't even want to be around each other? Before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? That's a deep one and a lot to dissect. Now, Malcolm X is someone who I've taken an interest in recent years and have been learning about his story, and I find him to be very inspiring and very fascinating. But we don't have time to go into all of it, but in short, Malcolm X started off as kind of a criminal and then became a civil rights freedom fighter and then ultimately was assassinated by his own people. Again, there's a lot more to that story, but I don't have time to go into it today. As far as this quote goes, what immediately jumps out to me is that he's talking directly to the black community. And at this time, it was pretty common for black folks to downplay a lot of their black features. For example, a common trend at the time was black people putting perms and chemicals and relaxers in their hair to straighten it, to give it more of that non-black look, if you know what I mean. I mean, there was even stories of people bleaching their skin to make it lighter. I think some of the cause of that was during that time, being black wasn't looked at as pretty or handsome or attractive, and black people were constantly being told that, hey, you black, so you ugly, beat it. And naturally, after hearing that for so long, some black people wanted to change certain things about them to be looked at as more attractive. So when he says, who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and to hate your lips? He's talking about one of the most distinctive features on black people, which is big nose and big lips. I think it's the programming though, because if we take a bigger look at this, and yes, his primary message here is directed at the black community, and he's 100% spot on, I also think a lot of this could apply to other people. What I mean is, the next part of his quote says, who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Going back to the programming, when I was a kid, I received a lot of rejection and was not a big fan of myself. And this was way before the self-love movement. The black kids didn't want to hang out with me because they thought I was whitewashed because I loved Pokemon and skateboarding. And the white kids didn't want to hang out with me because I was poor as hell. I was the poor kid. And I also had a pretty bad speech impediment, so everyone just made fun of me. So Malcolm X saying, who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? It's programming. And I'm sure a lot of people have similar stories that we can go on all day. The next part of his quote, who taught you to hate your own kind? We see this all the time. You got people on the same team hating each other, people at the same job hating each other, women hating women, doctors hating doctors, teachers hating teachers, drug dealers hating drug dealers. Even people of the same religion can have hate for each other. Look at Malcolm X. He was killed by his own Muslim brothers, so he knows. So the question is, why is there so much hate amongst your own kind? That's a very complicated answer that I unfortunately don't have. Next part of his quote is, who taught you to hate the race you belong to so much so that you don't want to be around each other? Now, this one is particularly troubling, that makes me think of black on black crime. Now, I'm sure there are other races that are killing each other all the time, but I feel I can only really comment on black crime because I've had firsthand experience with it. Like I said earlier, I grew up in very poor areas with a lot of crime, and I witnessed so much black on black crime that it became normal, which is not a good thing. And I think a lot of that stems from poverty, but that is also a very complicated subject that I don't have all the answers to. Another thing to add to this is when I first moved to LA, I met a successful black TV writer. I met with him, had coffee, and was just so excited to hear his story. And his main message to me was how few blacks in Hollywood, regardless of their status, didn't want to help him. And the people that ultimately became his network and connections were non-black. He wasn't the only black professional in Hollywood that told me this either. Hearing this, I couldn't understand it until I wrote a few short films of my own and wanted to work with the black actors and filmmakers that I personally knew. Moving on. Malcolm X ends his quote with, "You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?" And I believe this is a call to action and a chance for all of us to reflect. Every time I look at Instagram, I see lots of lip injections and butt surgeries and all kinds of body modifications. And even I've gone way overboard with extreme gym and diet habits, as well as being way too obsessed with my weight. And sometimes I think to myself about all of this. Who taught you to hate being what God gave you? Thanks for watching.